Hey guys, welcome back. Wow, we're tantalizingly close to 1,000 subscribers, and I just want to say thank you guys so much. If you've been watching this channel for a while, you guys know I went to the University of Waterloo, and back in Waterloo, I ran this UW Fire Club, and basically what the point of the club is talking about the same thing that we're talking about right now, right? So personal finance, investing, stocks, stuff like that. So I ran a club back in UW, and maybe only like 20 people would show up on the first day, and then half the people would disappear, and less than 10 people would frequently attend the meetings. So to have a platform where I can speak to 1,000 of you consistently, and then have like at least hopefully most of you guys watch the entire video, that's absolutely amazing to me. And I just once again I just want to say thank you guys so much. This is absolutely amazing. And I know the video of this title, I'm losing it. And I know the title of this video is called the 1,000 Subscribers Q&A, and we're not really at 1,000 yet. But I hope you guys will forgive me for jumping the gun a little. I think we'll hit 1,000 subs by the end of the month at the very latest, probably a lot sooner than that actually, within the next week or two. So yeah, once again, thank you. And be sure to hit the like button on this video because it does help out with the YouTube algorithm. And if you're new here, consider subscribing and helping us get to that magical 1,000 subscribers count. So the first question asked by the community that I will answer is asked by Fazil. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce it. I probably butchered it, but he's asking, bro, is McDonald's paying you? And I know where this one comes from. It's because I used to have a handheld mic, and recently I got a new camera and I got a new microphone, and now my new microphone attaches to the camera, so it frees up my hand. And I hold a coffee these days. I don't have one today, but sometimes I used to hold a coffee when I talk. And the reason why I do that is because I want this to feel like we're having a coffee chat, right? We're having a conversation. We're not just having like a university lecture or something, because who wants that? So yeah, that's the reason why I sometimes hold a drink, but unfortunately McDonald's is not paying me. And believe me, the amount of money I spend at McDonald's, I wish they would pay me, but unfortunately they don't. So hopefully that answers your question. Now moving on to a little bit more serious questions. This one's from Jeffrey. So Jeffrey says, hey Andy, your channel has encouraged me to take control of my finances. And let me just say that I'm super glad to hear this because when I started this channel, I didn't really think that it was going to catch on this quickly. And never mind 1,000 people, if I were just to inspire one of you and put you on a path to fire, then I would say that this channel has been a great success. So yeah, thank you so much, Jeffrey, for saying that. And I'm going to move on to the rest of his question. So the rest of the question goes, I've been using a financial advisor into my TFSA account, and he's invested in all these mutual funds with these MERs. MER stands for Management Expense Ratio, by the way. It's basically the fee that the mutual fund is charging. So yeah, anyways, he's asking if it's a good time for him to switch all his money into maybe a low fee ETF and become a passive investor, and transfer these funds into, let's say, a Quest Trade or something, or will Quest Trade reimburse him? First of all, I just want to say I don't work for Quest Trade, so you're going to have to ask the Quest Trade customer service whether or not the fee will be reimbursed and stuff like that. So I can't make that decision for you, unfortunately, and I don't know any of the details. So yeah, please contact the Quest Trade customer service if you have any questions about the fees and stuff like that. So I don't want to say something wrong accidentally. So I'm just going to defer to that. But what I can answer is a question about the mutual funds and things like that. And you guys know that I'm not a big fan of mutual funds, and the reason is those high MERs, right? So if you look at, let's just say, a Vanguard index fund, I think the Vanguard index fund that tracks the S&P 500, VOO or VOO, the expense ratio is very, very low. It's only like 0.03%, I think it was. So it's basically nothing. It's almost like it's free. Now with mutual funds, they're charging you what, like 2% or sometimes 1.5% or something like that. So in my opinion, most of the time it's not worth it. Now, I don't know the performance of these mutual funds, obviously, so maybe these mutual funds are performing a lot better than the S&P 500, but I would say that 9 out of 10 times mutual funds don't outperform index funds, and especially when you factor in the fee, you're actually getting hit quite hard by the fees, and you're not outperforming the index, right? So most of the time, mutual funds are a bad idea in my opinion. Now, unless you have like a mutual fund that you really trust with a star manager or something like that, and they're able to outperform the market, even despite cutting out the fee after the fee. So yeah, if you meet one of those mutual funds with all-star manager, then by all means go for it. But I would recommend that you actually go and check what the performance of your mutual fund is and benchmark it against a passively managed index. And if it doesn't outperform the index, why are you paying like a 2% fee when you could be paying almost no fees with Vanguard? It doesn't have to be Vanguard, by the way, just anyone else, right? So that's just my opinion. I think most of the time for most people, passive is the way to go, unless if you want to go active, just pick your own stocks, right? So don't just put your money blindly into a mutual fund and into a financial advisor, because most of the time the financial advisor, they're trying to earn a commission fee, right? So when you buy their mutual fund, they're not really concerned about getting you the highest return possible. They're just concerned about getting their commission, right? So that's the part of mutual funds that I don't like. And yeah, I think definitely that Jeffrey, if you're watching this, you should definitely consider switching your portfolio into a passively managed index at least, or start picking your own stocks. But if you have time, don't just blindly pick stocks. You got to do research on that. But if you don't want to do research, definitely moving your money into a passively managed ETF is also a good plan. So that's my answer. So the next question comes from Anthony. And now I'm not going to read the whole question just because it's a little long, but essentially what he's asking is that he has a $10,000 cash investment that he wants to make, and he's deciding on whether or not he wants to, what kind of stocks to invest, or ETFs, or even, right? So he's saying that he's looking more for like a short-term gain, 1 to 3 years, rather than a long-term. So there's nothing wrong with trying to get some short-term gains. Now, on this channel, I usually advocate for more long-term plans, but I understand in his situation, he's more, I think he's a student, right? So he's a student, so he might need this money to pay off some student debts when he graduates and something like that. So that's probably the reason why he's looking for an investment that's only 1 to 3 years. So if you're going to invest for only 1 to 3 years and you want something that gives you a decent return, but you don't want to take super high risk either, right? So I can't really make any recommendations to you specifically because I'm not a financial advisor, but here's what I have to say about this. So what I suggest is that you play it aggressive, but not gamble. So what do I mean by that? Well, gambling is when you put your money into, let's say, a penny stock, right? So you think you heard word on the street or something that this penny stock is just going to absolutely skyrocket, so you just dump all your money in and you just hope for the best. That is absolutely just gambling, right? So when you gamble, sometimes you win, but most of the time you lose. So I would not recommend you gamble. So don't gamble, and don't play options either, by the way, if you don't understand what they are. Now, if you do understand what they are and you actually spend a lot of time researching on them, maybe you could try to play with some options. But if you're an absolute beginner, don't mess with options either, right? So options and penny stocks are an absolute no for you, even if you're looking for short-term gains, in my opinion, if you're a beginner, that is. Now, moving on, what's my suggestion then? Well, my suggestion is that maybe you pick stocks that are relatively high quality, but might be considered overvalued. In my opinion, if you put your money into, let's say, Microsoft, even at current levels, and you just waited for a really long time, like 5 to 10 years or something like that, I really don't see a way that you could lose money. You might not make as much money as some other stocks, but I have a hard time imagining that you would lose money just because, if you look at Microsoft or Google's balance sheet is absolutely amazing. If you look at their cash flow, if you look at just all the statistics, even though that their valuation is very high, their business model is very good as well. So there's a lot of ways you can play this, but keep in mind what I said. Play it aggressive, but not gamble. And that was not financial advice, so please don't sue me if you lose money. Now the next question is asked by Swimming Buddy 1, and he asked me, I have a huge stake in Air Canada currently and quite negative. Would you sell at a loss before their financials and buy back when the stock price goes lower to the $13 to $15 range, or buy the bullet and hold it for a year or so? So to answer this question, I'll say this. It's never a good idea to time the market. And this is a mistake that I've made plenty of times in the past when I was just starting in my stock investing career. So what would happen is that a stock that I own would keep on going down, right? And I would be super negative on my position, and I would go, hey, maybe I'll just sell it now and then I'll buy it back in when it comes even lower. So then, I don't know, maybe I just have really bad luck or something. When I decide to sell, as soon as I sell, the stock starts rebounding back up. And then I was like, I don't want to buy back in because I sold at a loss. And then now if I buy back in, then I'm going to buy back in at my original cost basis or even higher. I'm not going to do it, right? But then the stock just keeps going higher and higher. And in the end, I was right about this stock being a great company, but I sold that great company at a loss. Now, this is absolutely such a bad scenario to be in, right? And I don't want anyone to ever be in such a scenario like this. It could also work the other way. It could work on the upside, right? So a stock goes up and up and up, and then I'll go, oh man, this stock has gone up a lot. So I'm going to sell out of my entire position, even though I think that the stock should be valued at higher. So then I sold out of a lot of position of what I had in the stock. And then the stock just keeps going higher and higher, and then it never came back down. So I've made mistakes both on the upside and on the downside. So usually it's never a good idea to try and day trade unless you're a professional day trader and you actually know what you're doing. But for the vast majority of us, it's never a good idea to time the market. Just buy and hold, buy and hold, buy and hold. So that's my advice to you. So with Air Canada, I've done an analysis of Air Canada. You can watch that video right here. So I think with Air Canada, I'm really comfortable holding this stock. And if it goes down, your mindset should actually be, should I average down on it or not? So for you, Swimming Buddy 1, what I would think about is that maybe you would consider actually averaging down on your position if you're down a lot on your position, right? So bring down that cost basis. And if you're right about Air Canada, and if I'm right about Air Canada, the stock would rebound to its previous highs one day before the whole Roni situation broke out, and maybe we would all make some money. But that's your own decision. This is not financial advice. Never try to time these stocks, right? Especially don't try to time like financial reports. That's like a big mistake that a lot of people make, is that they try to time financial reports. And I've made this mistake as well in the past, where I think that a financial report is going to be great, so I buy in like the night before it comes out, and then all of a sudden the report is bad and the stock plummets and I'm stuck in it. So that's happened to me in the past as well. So yeah, it's never a good idea to time reports. And sometimes the problem is that you could be right and still you could be wrong. So I'll explain what I mean, right? So you could be right about the company beating expectations and beating EPS and revenue and stuff like that, but the company puts out bad guidance and then the stock would just tank. So that happens a lot of the times where you really don't know what the management is going to say in terms of guidance, right? So you can try and predict what the EPS and revenue is going to be, and if you're right, then you might make some money. But the problem is that sometimes you don't know what the management is going to say, and the management puts out bad guidance and then it tanks the stock. So yeah, don't try to time these things. That's my point. So moving on to the next question. The next question comes from Coles Kramer, and Coles asks, if you were to start all over again from the beginning, knowing what you know, what would you do differently and what strategies would you implement? And what's your best advice for starter investors with $500 a month? And is it better to buy Facebook, TELUS, Apple, or a bunch of Microsoft if you only had 2K? So that last part I'm not going to answer as to how you should specifically allocate your funds into each specific stock, because once again, I am not a financial advisor, so I really don't feel comfortable giving personal advice as to exactly how you should position your portfolio. But I can talk in terms of some general advice. So starting from the top, the first question is that if I were to start all over again, what strategies would I implement and what would I do differently? And to answer that question is, the first thing that I would do differently is actually research all the companies that I would invest in. So I see this mistake in beginner investors all the time, where people just buy stocks with absolutely no understanding of what the company does. And why would you put your money into a company that you have absolutely no idea in, right? So if I just came up to you on the street and I was like, yo, I have this really cool like drone company. Yeah, I make drones for people and you can like remote control them and stuff like that. And I'll show you some pictures of what the drone looks like. And could you give me $1,000? And I'll give you some piece of paper that says that you own part of the company. What would you say? You would say no, right? But what a lot of people do is that they go to the stock market and they see that this company is called blah, blah, blah. And I'm interested in this company and I'm just going to put all my money in, right? And that just absolutely boggles my mind, because it's like, why would you invest invest in a company that you know absolutely nothing about. Now, story time. This happened back in, I think it was 2017 during the big Bitcoin craze. And there was this company called Long Island Iced Tea. And they made these like iced tea drinks and stuff. And then all of a sudden one day the company just decided, we're not going to make iced tea anymore. We're going to delve into blockchain technology. So they changed the name of the company to Long Blockchain. And then the stock just absolutely skyrocketed because everyone's just buying anything that's related to blockchain. Now this to me is such a boneheaded move, and it just illustrates the like inexperience of beginners, right? So I'm not sure how well Long Blockchain is doing now, but my guess is that they're not doing so well at the moment. So yeah, I just don't make that mistake, guys. Don't just buy into a company with no research and no understanding with what the company does. If you don't want to spend the time, or if you don't have time to research, just go buy an ETF. Honestly, just buy a passively invested S&P 500 index fund and just put your money in it, and you don't have to do any research and you don't have to do any work. But if you're actually going to invest in individual companies, please do your research. So that's my advice to beginner investors, and my advice to my former self, if I had a time machine and I could go back to when I was 18 and be like, hey man, like buy companies that you actually understand. Now moving on to the second part of the question is that what's my advice for people with limited amount of funds, say like $500 a month. Now you'd actually be surprised by how much $500 a month is if you just put it towards investing and you just never took any money out, and then you just made that compound interest roll over year after year. So I'm going to put up a chart on the power of compound interest. If you invested $500 at an 8% rate of return, which is pretty conservative if you ask me, because the S&P 500 index, if you just put your money into an index fund, you can get about 8%. So 8% is actually a bit of a conservative number in my opinion. Now, if you invest in individual stocks and you're good at picking stocks, you can get a lot more than 8%. But for the sake of argument, let's just assume 8%. So let's just assume that you put in $500 into an S&P 500 index fund at 8% rate of return every year, and you roll over the interest and dividend payments, and you just do that for 30 years. You can see that the number becomes quite substantial. So yeah, essentially that's what I have to say, is that don't underestimate the power of just putting away $500 each month. Now, you might not be able to necessarily retire early, but you would still be able to retire on time if you're starting really young. If you're starting at like 20 years old or something, then if you just let that compound interest roll for like 40 years, then you'll be set. So that's what I have to say. Okay, so I realize we're gonna have to do the same thing as my RBC portfolio reveal video, which is split the video into two parts. So I'll end the first part of the Q&A here, and be sure to hit the like button if you haven't already, and consider subscribing if you haven't, and help us reach that magical 1,000 subscriber mark. And with that being said, I'll see you guys in part 2 of the 1,000 subscriber count Q&A video. So, see you guys later. Bye-bye.